Well, Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. If you have them, you can send those to requests@radiodeadair.com. Well, like it says on the screen, or you can put them in the comments for our YouTube. We will help you out with stuff. I'm Nash. Been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. In addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, also works in IT. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's been raining a bit here lately, so even when it's not raining, it's cold because the water is now on the ground and evaporating and soaking up all that heat.
Well, we got some news stories and we got some questions. First thing to talk about this week is I, over this last week, did a massive revamp of my system. I've been using the same Windows installation for over a decade. And if you know anything about Windows, it doesn't like it when you do that because, well, the registry is still a very stupid thing that we have to contend with all these years later.
It was one of the registry is one of those ideas that when they came up with it, this sounds like a good idea. The problem was all the software manufacturers who never, including Windows, by the way, including Microsoft, by the way, who never actually cleaned up the registry when you updated stuff or removed stuff. And what I mean here is, when you install software, it puts lots of stuff in the registry. Usually, some software doesn't. And then you go, oh, I need to update the software. There's a new version. And there may be some registry entries that are no longer necessary. But the update doesn't remove them.
No.
And so then when you uninstall the software, the uninstall will be based off the most recent install, and so won't know to remove that stuff. And so it may cause conflict. Some usually doesn't, because software knows is programmed to look for its entries in its locations. But if it's something like graphics drivers, all that cruft builds up, and there may be a conflict because they'll go, oh, no one will have not re-imaged their computer from 9 versions of the driver ago.
Right.
No one will do that.
So I had to, and I was also on Windows 10. Hi, Grady. That's not a big help. Not a big help there, buddy. Also been on Windows 10. And because I've been using my computer nearly nonstop for this and other reasons, I never had the time to stop and install Windows. Now, upgrading your system from one version of Windows to another works, but it can leave behind garbage that you might not want and will impact your performance.
All those registry entries I just mentioned.
So the best thing to do is to do a full reinstall from scratch. And I mean from scratch. I wiped the C drive and started over. Now, there's a lot of things about this that I can tell you interesting. First, one of the first things I've noticed so far is the scheduler on Windows 10 versus Windows 11. Way better. What I'm talking about is CPUs these days have multiple cores with multiple threads. Or if you're on Intel with the new one, it's just multiple cores now. Those threads and those cores are supposed to do things simultaneously. And in order to keep those things balanced and to stop things from crashing into each other, you need something to schedule those threads and those tasks to work around each other. That's what the scheduler is. Now I had,
for example, the program may say, I'm going to do this, but I need this part done first. And I actually wrote code for this back in the day when my previous existence as an insurance software writer, where it's like, do this part of the processing, but wait until after this is done. And we didn't have multiple cores, so we just had semaphore flags, basically, effectively in the software. It said, is this done? Set this. The other piece of code going, is this set to this? Fantastic. Run and reset it.
Yeah, so Windows 10 came out in 2015. And it was made for an older generation of processors. And they have been updates to Windows 10, but those effectively kind of stopped in, I want to say, 2021, 2022. I think those stopped in 2022. They stopped doing feature update. Since 2022, Windows 10 has only been getting security updates. It stopped getting feature updates. And one of the side effects of that is newer processors with newer requirements like mine. I have a Ryzen 9 7900X. Don't react as well to the older scheduler. And because it wasn't getting feature updates anymore, it wasn't getting the newer updates to the schedulers like Windows 11 was. So I have now, my processor is working a whole lot better. Like a lot better. Like I was amazed. I already had a pretty quick rendering video and stuff with it's a 12 core, 24 thread processor. So the rendering was already pretty good, but switching it over to this, render times are just like bang. Like I'm rendering like an hour of video, 1080p video in like 10 minutes. Just whoosh. Nice. It's
what was your previous
whoosh. It would take about 20, maybe 25 minutes or so.
Okay. So 50% plus upgrade.
Yeah. Also, the CPU, because I'm presuming because of the scheduler issues, it's not working as hard when it doesn't need to. So it's running a little bit cooler based on, what I've been able to see of it. Now, there are some recommendations I have if you're going to be doing this. The first, and this is one you can do right now, even if you're not upgrading your stuff. I'm going to put this link in the channel and I'll put it in the video description. This is a little trick I found. There's a couple of these. I liked this one, but you could find what will work for you. There are these debloat scripts that a couple of people have been writing. I'll put this in the channel here and I will show you on screen in a momento. Un momento. Put it over here. Boop. And bring this up here. A couple of these are on GitHub and such. These are scripts you can run in PowerShell that will pop up these options to go through and remove a ton of crap from Windows 11, like telemetry, diagnostic data, activity history, app launch tracking, and targeted ads. It can remove Windows Recall. It can remove Copilot. It can remove Bing Web Search and Cortana and all of this crap. It works on Windows 10 or Windows 11. It will clean up freaking Windows. It is so good. You can find that. It's free. It's on GitHub, and it works. Because as soon as I got Windows 11 installed, I ran it, and it's been beautiful. The only downside is, depending on the updates that come out, it may try to put some of the stuff back, like in a new release update. You can just run it again. Get rid of it again. Fuck them. So that was a nice little experience I've had here. Let's see. Other things. Probably the most important thing you want to save from your old installation is your user folder. Well, yeah, but let me talk. Your user folder on Windows. The entire users folder is probably a good one to keep. Make sure you have hidden files available. You can see hidden files on there when you do it, because the app data folder in everybody's user folder is a hidden folder, and that's probably the most critical. Because I'm
going to interject something there.
Yeah.
You do have to be careful with app data, because if you're copying that over and putting that on a new machine or a Windows 11 machine that you take from Windows 10,
you don't just drop it back in. You need to have it copied. You need to have it copied, because all your important, everything that your desktop, your downloads, your documents, all of your files,
settings, all your settings are going to be there.
Yeah, and a lot of things you don't even know. What? Oh no, what? Jiggly's saying what? What? What's going on? You did. Oh yeah, you dropped your. Yeah, don't. The app data folder. It saves. It saves a lot of things in app data that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
Like for example, when I was setting up OBS again, some of my media files, like the little logo, Radio Dead Air logo up there, it was saved in one of my app data. It was saved in one of the OBS app data folders for some reason. If I hadn't have saved it, I wouldn't know where to find it. But I just searched for it, and there it was, and I copied it to a new place.
For another example, back when we used IRC, Merc was mine for the shows as our chat location. Merc saves its logs under app data. And sometimes those are really, and I don't mean logs of, oh, you fired up the program, you did this. I saved the logs of every channel I was in because I never knew when someone would go, hey, who was that guy who did the dumb thing? And I would go, you're going to give me some better keywords there. Okay, it was this person.
But that folder alone, the users folder, saving that that's where most of your important stuff is. Unless you have a specific custom place you put things, by default, most applications put stuff there, Windows put stuff there. Just make a copy of that someplace else, because just having that available has been getting myself set back up again has made it 10 times easier. Little problems that might not pop up for other people, but I have noticed for myself. There's a thing, if you work with audio, called a VST plugin. These are audio plugins that are made for not just editing, but also live recording, like we're doing right now. I've got a couple of plugins. I've demonstrated those. And the format for them is called VST. I'm not sure what that stands for off the top of my head, but I do know it's a universal format that... Let's say you want to use it in Windows on Adobe Audition. You want to use it on Apple in Logic. You want to use it on Linux in Audacity. Doesn't matter.
It
VSTs. Yeah.
Virtual Studio Technology.
There you go. So I use a lot of those in Wavelink live because I like to clear up the background noise. I demonstrated that last week. And I also like some other little bits and like de-reverb to take out any boominess from a background noise, just stuff like that. Problem is, I'm a good boy. I pay money for those. Some of them they're a little bit older. They still work. I never saw a reason to update them because I'd have to pay again. Trouble is the interface for some audio programs does not pass along keyboard inputs to VST plugins. Mouse inputs will work. Keyboard inputs will not. So
I would say that very much depends on the VST and how it's coded. And it is very much a hit or miss basis on VSTs.
And also, not just the VST, also the application as well.
Yes.
So when I went to
interface or DAW you're using.
So when I went to try to put my license keys back into some of the plugins, I couldn't, because I couldn't type the license key, and only a few allowed me to do the right click paste thing. I had to find some workarounds on those. The funny part here is, had I just gone and got pirated copies of those, cracked copies, and used those instead, those would have inputted the fake license keys for me, and I would have been able to use the things I paid for without any problems. So I did get them all working. One of them I had to find a workaround. I had to actually, never was able to get the keyboard to work. So I had to find where the INI file was and find out. I had to go look this up on forums and find out where to put the license key in the INI file. And then it worked. But it was a giant pain.
By the way, INI files are what we used to use before registries.
Yeah. Then some programs still use them. It was, I kept a list of everything that I was going to be reinstalling again. So I went through and I like listed out every single thing I need to move over. I even still missed a few things, but because I had that users folder, I had them without knowing I had them.
When I did basically the same thing with the old computer to new computer. What I did is I ran a script that said, "What's my installed programs?" Great, dump that to a text file, and I put that basically in a cloud storage that I control. And so when I'm going through, set up the new computer, I'm going through that as a checklist and going, okay, yes, this. Don't really need this anymore. This. I had that. When did I have that?
And of course, one of the simplest ones that's super helpful is Magic Jelly Bean Key Finder. This is mainly for Windows and Office and related programs like that, but it will give you your license key very simply, very easily. You copy it and then you can re-enter it because Windows, I have a Windows 10 I had a Windows 10 license key, Windows 10 Pro, and I installed Windows 11. I entered my Windows 10 license key and Windows 11 took it because that Microsoft really wanted people to upgrade. So they're like, yeah, you can use your key. We don't care. So they tend to care more about volume licenses than they do about individual users in a lot of ways. But regardless, although I did see a fun thing, people have actually found a use for AI. You can ask AI a script to activate Windows and Office for free, and it will provide one.
There's a second use for AI.
That works.
For Grok AI. There's a second use for Grok AI. You can ask it about Elon, and it will tell the truth until it is reprogrammed.
I want to point out Copilot will do that too. So Microsoft is essentially, when you use Copilot, they're giving you Windows for free. So it'll give you a script. You can just type into PowerShell, and it will activate Windows for you for free. So yeah. All right. So that's the lowdown, all that. We're back up and running. We sound about the same, right? I think I kept all my plugin settings. I wrote those down so I had those right. So we should sound the same. I hope we do. Don't want to sound too different than nothing odd, all good. All right, good. One I really want to recommend, one of the plugins I use I really want to recommend is Timeo Stereo Tool. I think it says it's Thimeo or Timeo, whichever one, however they say it. I'll type in the channel. The base plugin by itself is relatively inexpensive. It's about $40. Now all the add-ons are crazy. There's like $100 add-ons you can add to it, but the base tool itself, just the base plugin, amazing plugin because it allows you to get you can set up a playlist. All the songs will be about the same volume. You can set them up to get a radio sound to them, like the compression and all the other effects they add to get you an FM style sound to it. Super useful, especially for what I do on Mondays. So yeah, that's a real cheap one relatively for these plugins. Heartily recommend that one. It's a good one. Might be slightly louder than before, or maybe a bit more bass, but nothing I'd say 100% sure is completed. Well, as long as I'm not, am I clipping? Because that's the important part. As long as we're not clipping, that's all that matters. That's the important part. If we're not clipping, then we're fine. All right, then let's get to actually the news this week. Sure. Now let's get to some of the bad crap that AI is doing. So Alexa, a while back, had a option where you could prevent it from, it's a privacy feature to prevent it from sending your sound recordings, your vocal recordings to Amazon. So if you were talking around Alexa, you could put a flag on it and it would say, okay, we're not going to send this to Amazon for processing or any use or whatnot. Well,
it would all
those days are gone.
Locally, effectively.
Yeah, those days are gone. In order to give Alexa more data to process for their great big generative AI garbage, they are removing that privacy option. So if you were concerned about Alexa taking what you were saying and listening in on what you were doing and sending that to another company, like constantly listening, if you were concerned about that, too bad, you're fucked.
I'm wondering how this interacts with the fact that they paid $25 million in civil penalties for storing children's recordings. If they've just turned off the option, they're now storing children's recordings again.
Yeah, but on the other hand, there's no enforcement of rules on corporations anymore, so it doesn't matter. We have there is no more federal regulation. There might be state regulation.
Yeah. So apparently, if you suspect, I just saw this on Blue Sky, if you suspect there are Alexa devices in the area that someone just hasn't told you about, if you say clearly, Alexa, fart, they'll make fart sounds.
Alexa, fart. I'm good.
We need to have someone on a popular TV show, something that everyone watches, say that.
I wonder if anybody watching right now got that one. Oh well. In general, I have always these are bad devices to have, even when you had the flag option on it, because that was a matter of trust. Now, to be fair, if you have a smartphone, it's potentially doing the same shit. Siri, Gemini, it's doing the same shit. The best thing you can do with a smartphone is either, if you know what you're doing, you can come up with a custom ROM, at least on Android, to kill some of that stuff, or see if you could find some way to root your phone and yank that garbage out, if at all possible. Most people won't be able to do that. Or you just put you wrap your phone in one of those bags and soundproof bag and put it in a drawer, and that's your best option. Which isn't a very good option, but that's where we are right now. But these by themselves are simply designed to record you. These have always been a privacy nightmare. They're not allowed anywhere near military, are they, Mike?
Oh, no, God, no.
Yeah, they're not allowed anywhere near a military facility.
I mean, they're probably allowed in barracks and things like that, and housing, but not in. Okay, they're certainly not allowed in secure sections of a building, and I don't see why they'd be allowed in the regular sections of a building. But of course, I can't speak for every agency out there,
Yeah, and that should tell you, if a government agency says, "Oh, we don't want this anywhere near us," that should tell you something about using it yourself. Because if they're scared of the damn thing.
Well, okay, yes and no. Keep in mind that for a while they were going to ban all Bluetooth devices and and a bunch of other devices. I mean, they were going to ban cell phones from all military facilities, in the buildings. You had to leave it in your car, every single one. And some buildings have it. This is the case for this building on this place, or this is the case for this entire location. But they were going to do it the whole thing. And you know what stopped them from doing that? The Navy Yard shooting.
Yeah.
Because no one had their phones.
But I'm still pretty sure they put some restrictions in place on that.
There are a lot of restrictions on that sort of thing. I mean, these are the same people who banned Furbies. Mm-hmm. Because those little bastards could listen.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other reason is you could take apart a Furby and gut it and put all sorts of stuff in there, and it would still look like a Furby. So better safe than sorry.
In theory, you could disable Alexa. You could no longer have access to Alexa and keep the device. But at that point, why?
Yeah, it's a paperweight at that point.
Yeah, the local processing on Alexa is which is still functional. It still works just fine. There's no reason it can't keep working the way it is, except they're not making any money on it. Amazon has famously been losing money on Alexa for years. Because for some damn reason, they thought everybody was going to go, hey, Alexa, order me 1,000 gallons of lube and some stuff. And if you have an Alexa right now, enjoy that. They thought famously people were going to use it for all their shopping needs and everything. And they didn't. And it didn't, and didn't make them any extra money.
Because honestly, if I'm going to be shopping for something, this is why it didn't work. My experience was relatively universal. If I'm going to be shopping for something, I either already know what I want and it's right down at the store, or I've got to do a little bit of research, and I can't do that on a hockey puck.
You can't do it on a hockey puck. And also, when you're ordering something, you want to make sure the order's right, and you can't visually, unless you have it read it back to you, which isn't always that effective. So there was no advantage of doing it when you just open up your phone and there's a boop, boop, boop. There you go. It's the same thing. Yeah. So
you can make sure you're getting the right brand. You can make sure you get, because I'll be honest, even with research, I've accidentally ordered the wrong things. And with just talking to something, I mean, you play that video occasionally on the music show.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the kid is saying.
And it started playing porn.
I know what the response was.
Yeah. All right. Let's look ahead. Some other stuff. AMD, we talked a little bit about this last week, but some research has been done by Harper Unboxed, Der Bauer, Gamers Nexus, a bunch of great folks who actually do a lot of consumer-focused stuff on the YouTubes. So, the 9070 came out, and within a week, been sold out completely. However, if you look in some places, you'll see the prices are incredibly inflated. And it seems like when they do come back in stock, you're not going to find that $600 RX 9070 XT again. And there's a reason for this. Despite what they claim, that so-called MSRP was actually an introductory price. It was a phantom MSRP. MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price. What they did at release was they offered rebates to the individual manufacturers to keep the price at $600 so the manufacturer would actually make a profit off the card. But it turns out these prices are not viable for the manufacturer to actually make a profit on these cards based on, what they pay AMD for the parts, for the actual GPU chip itself. Well, it seems like these were just to get people in the door, sort of a Black Friday kind of thing. But when they get restocked, these prices are going to increase, probably by at least $100 each tier. So the lowest tier 9070 XT is going to go from $600, which was an amazing price, and guaranteed AMD could stomp the 5070 Ti into the ground because that's $750, and if you can get it for $750. Instead of that, it's going to be $700. At which point people will go,
it's a little bit
I'm just
harder
going to get I'll just get the NVIDIA because there's no, because the difference between $50 and $150 and $50 is a lot. So it also means the higher models are going to get even more ridiculously priced, and here's another thing. Jay's 2 cents looked at this. Hi, Lumi. Hi, little girl. You can come up here? You can come up, say hi to everybody? Be angry? Maybe? She sees things moving on screen. She wants to kill them.
I doubt that Jay's 2 cents talked to Lumi, but okay, go ahead.
No. Jay's 2 cents looked at AMD allowed manufacturers a wide leeway in assembling and card clock speeds and power delivery. There are some models that are limited to 304 watts. That's as most you can crank the card up to run through the GPU is 304 watts. And there are some that go as high as 340 watts. They don't list this on the box.
No.
There's no way of knowing which ones can do it and which ones can't unless you start reading reviews. So some of these,
let's face it, most people don't read reviews. They might look at the star ratings, they might look at the first paragraph or two, but they don't go in depth on them.
So some of these might have,
especially on the sites that go, here's our review, and it's 14 different web pages.
So some of these might have considerably better performance. Some of them might have less performance. You'll never know model to model because there's no indication of the power limits that the manufacturers are putting in their cards. And what's more, here's even funnier. The 304 watt model performed just the same as the 340 watt model.
So obviously whatever's the limiter is not voltage.
Well, it's the problem is they increased the wattage, but they didn't account for thermal throttle. So if the card pulls back when it gets too hot and then goes back up and pulls back, then you start getting a jittery clock speed that bounces up and down, and you lose performance. But if the card stays at a constant temperature, the clock speed stays at a constant temperature. It doesn't bounce, and you have more consistent performance. So they're like, let's crank up the power, but they didn't crank up the cooling capacity. Yeah. So, or even those fans. Yeah. Or even the GPU itself might not be very good to run at the higher voltages. Der Bauer noted that underclocking them and undervolting allowed for some overclocks, which is actually running it at a lower power level, meaning reducing the heat generated, allowed it to clock better. That's AMD for you. It's weird, but you have to tune those in specifically. So when these come back in stock, they're probably not going to be the same kind of a deal they were when they were initially released, which means AMD has shot themselves. And when the console manufacturers want to be competitive in the market, they will sell their consoles at a loss to gain market share. AMD is not willing to do that, even though they desperately need market share. So I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here. They're not going to accomplish it. We want to make the money. Well, you're not going to this time. You want to make the money, you're going to have to wait until next time when people have more market saturation with AMD, and NVIDIA has gotten, they're a little bit of a bite taken out of them. But last one this week, speaking of Windows 11, this is something you might notice with more recent updates. Windows 11 update, which is KB 5050092 preview update that started rolling out on January 29th. So you'll set up your printer, and this is on USB connected printers, not Wi-Fi. You'll tell your printer to print something. Yeah. And instead, it will spit out gibberish. This is a glitch from Windows. Problem comes from a clash between the updated printer drivers and the print spooler. The print spooler sends IPP messages to the printer, which causes it to print the wrong text. The issue impacts users running Windows 11 version 23H2 and 22H2, as well as Windows 10 version 22H2, but does not affect the latest Windows 11 version 24H2. Those 23, 22, those are the year updates, the yearly updates they do for Windows now. They're working on a fix that'll be included in a future update. It's a temporary solution. Microsoft advises IT administrators to use the known issue rollback to revert affected systems to a previous state. This is a funny one, at least. Yeah, they broke the printer spooler. Yeah.
I haven't run into this at work. Hopefully, actually, this is a Windows 11 update. I haven't run into this at work because we're not using Windows 11 yet.
Well, it's a Windows 10 too. 22H2 Windows 10.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, then I haven't seen it yet. Fingers crossed.
Well, they've got it's knowledge base 5050092. is the number of the update. So keep that in mind. If you try to print something soon and your printer spits out gibberish, that's why it's having some issues from Windows. This is like one of those basic things. You're like, how do you screw this up? It's the printer spooler. We've had this literally for 40 years.
I've mentioned this before. I think that a previous computer, I had a TV tuner card in it, and if I watch TV on my screen here with the TV tuner card, and I went to use my printer, it wouldn't print. I had to close the TV tuner card and then kill the process, which always hung up, before my printer would print. But in a professional setting, there used to be an issue with Excel. And this happened to everyone with Excel. You just didn't know it. It is that Excel expects the printer spooler to be present and working. And if your printer spooler process has crashed, then that version of Excel, I think they finally fixed it in 2016. That version of Excel, earlier versions, would just go, I'm waiting to talk to the printer spooler before I'll let you load a spreadsheet, before I finish opening. I will not finish opening until there's a printer I can talk to. Even if you have no printers, I need to be able to talk to the spooler.
So it's holding your spreadsheet hostage until it can talk to the printer spooler.
Yeah. And for corporate computers, by the way, because generally those are set up where users cannot start or stop and restart services.
Yep.
That was basically just reboot and hope the printer spooler fires up this time.
So anyway, if you're trying to print something soon and gibberish pops out, that's why. So enjoy that.
There's another reason why gibberish might be popping up. You might be working for Doge.
That's true. Yeah. So we didn't get a lot of questions this week because I told people we might not be doing tonight. So we did get two of them. So let's go over those right now. First off, this comes from Tony R. Hey guys, I'm in a community for a GitHub project, and the latest version started causing Windows Defender to block unzipping the files. We all know the people working on it, and the code is freely available, so we 100% know there's nothing malicious in the project. I tried to shut off Windows Defender to allow me to get the files, and I disabled tamper resistance setting too, but Windows Defender isn't shutting off. It's turned off, but it isn't off. Is there any way to get these files on my system and out of the zip so I can work with them? Thank you, Tony R.
Okay, first I'm going to go into what this may be. Not the Windows Defender part of it, what it's saying is the problem. Tuesday this week, Windows Defender started flagging a driver called WinRing0 as malware. This is a driver that controls fans and RGB lighting and all kinds of things. And suddenly Microsoft goes, oh, wait, that could be a problem because it has direct access to things. And someone could use that maliciously. And so they start flagging it. And if your thing uses WinRing0, then that may be why Windows Defender is saying, hey, there's a problem here.
Yeah, there are. Windows Defender is very overzealous. Understand, Windows Defender is made to be the basic, anybody has protection. You don't have to know a damn thing about a damn thing to make this work. Antivirus. It's just there in the background. You don't have to. The basic user never has to touch it.
Yeah, and it's very lightweight compared to things like McAfee or Symantec.
Yeah, it tends to be overzealous just for the sake of it expects the user not to be overly savvy in regards to security on their system. There are I don't know if Rurutu, I don't know if safe mode will get around Defender. I don't know if you can run safe mode system without Defender. So even when Defender is off, and there's a switch in there, you can say turn off real-time protection. Even when it's off, it's not necessarily off because Microsoft tried to make the thing pretty much foolproof. So they wanted to make sure you couldn't screw it up.
Well aware that someone would come along and design a better fool.
So one of the ways I found to get around this is I haven't really used Windows Defender for a while. It's not bad, and most people can pretty much use it without a problem. But I decided a while back to use a program called Bitdefender. It replaces Windows Defender. It's an antivirus. It's a pretty good antivirus. It has a paid version, but there's also a free version that I have set up. It tries to sell you some stuff, but you can actually turn those notifications off. It lets you turn them all off, and it will run in the background. It's a fairly decent little lightweight antivirus. And when you turn it off, it turns off. And that works for me. What you can do if you want to be able to access this file is, and it seems like a roundabout way of doing this, but install Bitdefender, shut it off, unzip the file, uninstall Bitdefender, and then Windows Defender will take its place again. Or you could decide to just keep Bitdefender.
Yeah, I am seeing some things. Now, I'm assuming that you're using the built-in Windows unzip. Which ties into a lot of things. So possibly using a third-party zip file, like zip program like 7-Zip might let you open the file.
Maybe, yeah.
Another option, and it is less burdensome than installing another antivirus. And theoretically, right-clicking on the file itself and going Properties Unblock might let you in as well. Here's the problem with trying to unzip them. Defender grabs it from the temp file. You don't even get a chance to unzip it. That's the issue. Built-in zip, 7-Zip. You might try 7-Zip, see if it works, just as an option. Let us know. Yeah, it when you try to access the file, Defender, it goes into memory, and that's where Defender gets it. It gets it from RAM. So regardless, there are a couple of ways around it. You can try some things. I have to say, I'm not to be like, oh, get rid of Windows Defender. Windows Defender for 99% of people will do the job, and it is very zealous, which it needs to be for most things. And if you're not doing any high-level stuff, you just want to keep your system running without worrying about downloading crap, it'll take care of it. But I like Bitdefender because it's a little more granular. I feel like I have some more control over it. And, that's just me. It'll still work just fine. It'll integrate into Windows security setup with no issues, but up to you. So yeah, there's hopefully that helps out there. All right. Next one is from RKI. Okay. Hey, Nash and Mike. I rearranged my desktop last week to add a third monitor that my friend was getting rid of. It's worked just fine for him for a year. I think years there. And he promised it hasn't had any issues that he's aware of. I got everything hooked up and running, but the monitor keeps randomly losing signal. It only has HDMI and DVI, and I don't have a DisplayPort adapter, so I can only connect it to the HDMI port on my video card. I can't seem to stop it from losing signal. I can't reproduce it on demand. It's very annoying because whenever it drops, my desktop becomes unavailable for 10 seconds or more. As the monitors rearrange themselves, then they do it again when the monitor picks up the signal again. Sometimes turning it off and on works. Sometimes unplugging the HDMI and plugging it back in works for a while, but it always seems to come back at least once or twice a day. Do you have any suggestions? Thanks, RKI. The first thing I would check is the HDMI cable. It may just be that it's loose on one or both ends. Get a better HDMI cable. They're not terribly expensive. Unless you go Monster brand, but just a simple one. Because if it's got HDMI and DVI, I'm going to bet you're nowhere near 4K. You're probably 60 hertz.
because DVI can't even handle that higher refresh rate, much beyond I think 75 is the most DVI can handle. 1080p 75 hertz. I think that's the most DVI can handle. So you shouldn't need the best HDMI cable. You can even use one that's been, like DVI 1.1 or HDMI 1.1 or something. It'll still work honestly, with that monitor just fine.
Yeah, I would go with a 4K cable because then you're certain.
Right. Yeah, why not?
And they're only $8.
Yeah. So yeah, you might have a cable issue. If you do, they replace the cable and it's still doing it. The next thing to do is, try a DVI to HDMI adapter. Move it off that HDMI port onto the DVI port, because you're not, again, consider if it's a monitor with a DVI port, you're not going to lose anything by switching it from it. The only thing you're losing is audio. I sincerely doubt you're using this monitor for audio. It's the only difference at this low level between HDMI and DVI. Where it says, could it have something to do with the version of HDMI the GPU sets versus what the monitor supports? No, because the cards will be backwards compatible. Later editions of HDMI are backwards compatible with earlier editions of HDMI. Not the other way around, however. If the card was an old one that couldn't put out that was like 1.1 or something, might be an issue there, but this is an older monitor. I mean, again, the addition of a DVI port, DVI was the digital video input that just before we developed HDMI. It's practically the same as HDMI. There are some differences, but the main one is DVI doesn't support audio, HDMI does. That at that point. Then HDMI started getting better and better, more bandwidth, more other stuff.
I did have at work at one point some HDMI cables that were HDMI to DVI that had an audio jack coming off at the DVI end, so that you could
plug it into the HDMI. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had some adapters like that, but that's the main difference. It's not going to, like, a monitor that old. I mean, you got it for free. No, it's a free monitor. Sure, take a free monitor. But a monitor with a DVI adapter, the HDMI performance and the DVI performance on that monitor are going to be identical, more or less. You're not going to lose anything moving from one to the other. So try a DVI to HDMI adapter and see if it does the same. The HDMI port might be going. Might have a loose bit on it, might not. So move it to the other port. You can still use the monitor. Still works.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the same thing with the cable. So the cable, HDMI cables have sort of little metal prongs. They're not there anything other than to maybe hold the cable in a little bit tighter. And if those have come loose, or if just, metal fatigue, whatever, then they might just not be holding the HDMI cable in 100% of the time. And by the way, the first thing to do, you did say, hang on, let me check. You did say, yes, you unplugged and replugged the HDMI cable. So good. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this week I had 2 call outs at work. This monitor's doing this strange thing. Unplug, replug. Hey, look, it fixed itself. But you did do that already, so good.
Another thing you could try is check and see the refresh rate of that monitor. Now, if it can't do a 60 hertz refresh rate, that monitor is pretty screwed. You probably shouldn't be using it. But I would check the refresh rate on that monitor. Go into your display settings, click on that monitor, and try to make sure if it no higher than 60. Don't push it too hard. Because as a third monitor, I take it this is not your primary. Leave it down at 60 hertz refresh rate. That means you may be running into a bandwidth issue on that monitor if you try to run it over 60 hertz. Again, it sounds like it's older. So turn it down. I really don't think this is the problem, because I'm pretty sure Windows will set it at 60 hertz automatically, but it couldn't hurt to check. Let's see, what else could be? Power might be doing it too. If it has an external power brick, look at those. Tend to have a little LED on them usually.
Yeah.
Look at that LED.
Starting to blink. If that LED's blinking, that may be the power brick is going. Now, if it's the internal power, unplug, reseat the power cable just to make sure it's 100% in there, because intermittent power is a common cause of things, of many issues.
It is a little older. I don't want to go, aha, it's capacitors again, but that's probably not the first check. It may be one of the issues it could possibly be, but that's pretty far down the list on this one. Honestly, I think pretty much this sounds like an HDMI cable. It just sucks. Hopefully that's all it is. Either it's the HDMI cable or you can move it to the DVI port and free monitor. Like, I'm not going to turn my nose up at a free monitor that's got some quirks to it because, hey, free monitor, you know? It's a gift horse, you know? But let us know if that takes care of it. Hopefully that will. Appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully. All right, I'm going to double check, see if we got anything else this week, but I don't think we did. So we might be a little short this week. That's okay. Yeah, I don't see any more. I think that's it. Yeah, it's going to do it for this week. All right, folks. We will be back next Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern, regular time. If you have tech questions for Mike and myself, you could. Oh yeah, before we get to the end of it, Ruler2 mentioned this. Yeah, it's good thing you mentioned. If you have an older Chromecast, this showed up this last week. They're starting to brick themselves, sort of.
Yes, sort of. The certificate that they use to communicate with everything else, saying I am a valid applet thing in here, expired because in the 10 years since Google issued it, they never updated it.
So whatever you do not factory reset your Chromecast. Google is supposedly they're going to be sending out an update to fix it. Do not factory reset it yourself. You just have to wait. I haven't heard anything yet on that. So
yeah, I have a newer version of the Chromecast, so mine wasn't bricked with this.
All right, folks. We'll be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have tech questions for Mike and myself, send those to requests@radiodeadair.com or put those in the comments of the YouTube video, and we'll help you out with those. Have yourselves a good week. We'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.